In the vast, intricate world of finance, there are stories whispered in hushed tones, tales not of fortunes made, but of fortunes missed. These are the ghost stories of the market, the what-ifs that haunt the sleepless nights of investors, entrepreneurs, and ordinary people alike. We obsess over the winners, the ones who bought that stock, who founded that company, who saw the future before it arrived. But what about the ones who were standing right there, on the precipice of a life-changing decision, and turned away? This is a story about regret, a powerful and often crippling emotion. It's about the psychological weight of knowing you were just one click, one signature, one moment of courage away from a completely different life. We unearth stories from people who sold their Apple shares in the early 2000s, individuals who dismissed Bitcoin as a fad when it cost mere pennies, and entrepreneurs who passed on investing in startups that are now household names. Their experiences paint a vivid picture of the shadow cast by what could have been. One individual, a retired teacher, told us about a portfolio of tech stocks he liquidated in 1999, just before the dot-com bubble burst. He felt like a genius, but in his haste, he also sold his shares in a small online bookseller named Amazon. The profits he secured then are now dwarfed by the astronomical gains he forfeited. For years, he couldn't look at his portfolio without a pang of bitterness, a constant reminder of his multi-million-dollar mistake. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the misjudgment, the failure to see the bigger picture. Psychologists call this counterfactual thinking, the human tendency to create alternative realities. When it comes to finance, this mental exercise can be particularly brutal. The numbers are concrete, the missed gains quantifiable, making the regret feel tangible, almost physical. It can lead to analysis paralysis, where the fear of making another wrong decision becomes so overwhelming that it prevents any decision at all. Investors become overly cautious, missing out on future opportunities because they are shackled to the phantoms of their past. But is there a way to break free from this cycle? Financial experts and psychologists agree that the first step is acceptance and reframing the narrative. Instead of viewing a missed opportunity as a personal failure, it can be seen as a powerful, albeit painful, lesson. Every investor makes mistakes. The most successful ones aren't those who never err, but those who learn from their errors and move forward with newfound wisdom. They learn to separate their ego from their investment strategy and to understand that hindsight is always perfect. The real tragedy isn't missing a 10-bagger stock. It's allowing that single event to define your entire financial journey. The market is a continuous stream of opportunities. The focus must shift from the closed doors of the past to the ones that are opening right now. By learning to forgive ourselves for past decisions made with the information we had at the time, we can release the heavy burden of regret. It's about transforming that painful what-if into a resilient what-ifs next. The greatest return on investment, after all, is not just financial, but psychological peace. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the world of finance and human behavior. When the market made it official, when the valuation crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, the man finally understood something most people learn too late. You didn't miss big opportunities loudly. You miss them quietly, while telling yourself you're being responsible. At first he tried to move on. That's what sensible people do. They don't dwell. They don't look backward. They focus on the next thing. But the problem with missing $1 trillion moment is that everything after it feels like a consolation prize. When catching up becomes impossible, he tried to invest later. By then, the entry price had multiplied so much that even a large investment felt small. Early believers owned influence. Late believers only owned exposure. That difference matters more than people realize. Influence shapes decisions. Exposure only follows them. He bought shares. He tracked performance. He even made money. But money wasn't the wound. Power was. He had once been close enough to shape the future. Now he could only react to it. And in finance, reacting is losing. The psychology of the missed moment. The human brain does something cruel after a missed opportunity. It replays, not once, not twice, endlessly. He replayed the meeting where it was mentioned casually. The document he skimmed instead of reading deeply. The sentence he dismissed as too optimistic. Each replay added detail. Each detail added weight, and weight becomes identity. He wasn't just a man who missed an investment, he became the man who missed that investment. That identity followed him into every room. Why he couldn't trust again. People think missing once makes you braver next time. It doesn't. It makes you cautious in the wrong way. Every new opportunity now felt like a trap. What if this is another illusion? What if I'm chasing ghosts? What if I'm forcing it? So he waited again, and again, and again. Because after missing history once, you become terrified of misidentifying it again. That fear doesn't protect you, it paralyzes you. The cruel irony of hindsight. Years later, journalists would write stories explaining the rise. They made it sound obvious. They connected dots cleanly. They explained the logic. They simplified complexity. And reading those articles felt like being mocked by time itself. Because the truth was uncomfortable. Nothing was obvious before it worked. Every great opportunity looks foolish until it becomes inevitable. And inevitability only appears in hindsight. Why the market never forgives timing. Markets don't care how smart you are. They don't care how cautious you are. They don't care how experienced you are. They care when you arrive. Arrive early gives you shape outcomes. Arrive on time gives you profit. Arrive late gives you participate. Arrive after gives you watch. He arrived after. And there is no promotion from spectator to architect. The final realization. Near the end of his career, someone asked him a simple question. What's the biggest mistake you've ever made? He didn't mention a bad deal. He didn't mention a loss. He didn't mention a crash. He said nothing for a long time. Then he answered quietly, I waited for certainty in a world that only rewards conviction. That sentence explained everything. The real lesson most people miss. This story is not about arrogance. It's not about ignorance. It's not about luck. It's about a misunderstanding. People think risk is danger. In reality, delay is the danger. Because the biggest shifts in wealth don't wait for permission, for clarity, or for comfort. They reward the ones willing to stand inside uncertainty before it feels safe. Why he never recovered. He lived a good life, a respectable life, a successful life. But he never escaped the shadow of the moment he hesitated. Because success doesn't erase regret when regret is tied to who you could have been. And that is why some losses never appear on balance sheets. They live somewhere deeper. Final WORD Finance Unmasked. This is why we tell these stories. Not to glorify risk, not to shame caution, but to reveal the truth. Money docility, advertise. The greatest financial mistakes are rarely the ones that lose money. They're the ones that lose timing. And timing, once gone, never comes back.